Welcome to our channel where we dive into the darkest corners of the world to bring you spine-chilling tales. Today we explore the eerie echoes of the past in abandoned hospitals. These places, once filled with life and hope, have now become silent witnesses to countless tragedies and unspeakable horrors. Their decaying walls hold secrets, and the shadows within them whisper stories of those who never left. We will journey through the haunting corridors of St. Mary's Hospital where restless spirits roam. Then we'll uncover the unsettling legend of the phantom nurse at Old Mercy General, a spectral figure who continues her rounds even in death. Finally, we will delve into the chilling tales of Ridgeview Asylum, where the lost souls of its tormented inmates still linger. Welcome to Echoes of the Past Haunted Hospitals. St. Mary's Hospital was once a beacon of hope in a small, tight-knit community. Built in the early 1900s, it served as the primary healthcare facility for miles around. But as time passed, the hospital saw its fair share of tragedy. Wars, pandemics, and untimely deaths left their mark on this once thriving institution. The hospital was eventually abandoned in the late 1980s, but locals say that not everyone left. The halls of St. Mary's are said to be haunted by the spirits of those who died within its walls. One of the most frequently reported sightings is that of a young girl in a tattered hospital gown. Witnesses claim to see her wandering the halls, her eyes filled with a sorrow that chills to the bone. One night, a group of urban explorers decided to investigate the abandoned hospital. Equipped with flashlights and cameras, they ventured into the dark, decaying structure. As they made their way through the halls, they felt an overwhelming sense of unease. The air grew colder and the shadows seemed to move on their own. Suddenly, one of the explorers saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was the young girl, her eyes locked onto his. He froze, unable to move as she slowly began to walk towards him. The others called out to him, but he couldn't respond. Just as she was about to reach him, she vanished into thin air. Terrified, the group fled the hospital, vowing never to return. They later reviewed their footage and found that the girl's apparition had been captured on camera. Her sorrowful eyes seemed to pierce through the screen, leaving a lasting impression on all who saw it. But the young girl is not the only spirit said to haunt St. Mary's. There are also reports of a nurse who continues to tend to patients long after her death. Witnesses claim to hear the sound of footsteps echoing through the empty halls, accompanied by the faint rustle of a nurse's uniform. One night, a security guard was making his rounds when he heard the sound of a woman sobbing. He followed the sound to a room that had been used as a makeshift morgue during a flu epidemic. As he entered the room, he saw a nurse bent over a gurney, her shoulders shaking with sobs. When he called out to her, she looked up, revealing a face twisted in anguish. The guard was paralyzed with fear as the nurse slowly walked towards him. Her eyes, filled with a deep sadness, seemed to plead for help. Just as she reached him, she vanished, leaving the room cold and silent. The guard quit his job the next day, unable to shake the memory of the sorrowful nurse. These stories are just a glimpse into the haunted past of St. Mary's Hospital. The spirits that roam its halls are a testament to the tragedies that occurred within its walls. And even though the hospital has been abandoned for decades, the echoes of the past continue to haunt those who dare to enter. Old Mercy General was once a bustling hospital serving the needs of a growing city. Built in the 1920s, it was known for its dedicated staff and state-of-the-art facilities. But like many hospitals, it was not immune to tragedy. Over the years, countless patients died within its walls, and it is said that some of them never left. One of the most famous legends associated with Old Mercy General is that of the phantom nurse. According to the story, a nurse named Margaret worked at the hospital during the height of a deadly epidemic. She was known for her tireless dedication and compassionate care, often working long hours without rest. Tragically, Margaret contracted the illness herself and died in one of the hospital's isolation rooms. But even in death, her dedication to her patients did not waver. Witnesses claim to see her ghostly figure patrolling the halls, checking on patients and administering care. One night, a young doctor was working late when he heard the sound of footsteps approaching his office. He looked up to see a nurse standing in the doorway, her face partially obscured by a surgical mask. She nodded to him before turning and walking down the hall. Curious, the doctor followed her, but she disappeared around a corner. When the doctor asked his colleagues about the nurse, they told him the story of Margaret. Intrigued, he decided to investigate further. He spoke to several patients who had reported seeing a nurse in their rooms late at night, even though no one had been assigned to their care. One patient claimed that the nurse had sat by her bed, holding her hand and whispering words of comfort. Another said that the nurse had adjusted his IV and checked his vitals, even though he had been alone in the room. The doctor continued his investigation, determined to uncover the truth. Late one night, he set up a camera in one of the isolation rooms where Margaret had died. He hoped to capture evidence of her ghostly presence. The next morning, he reviewed the footage and was shocked by what he saw. The camera had captured the image of a nurse entering the room and checking on an empty bed. Her movements were deliberate and purposeful, just as they had been in life. Despite the controversy, the legend of the phantom nurse continues to endure. Her dedication to her patients transcends death, and her ghostly presence serves as a reminder of the sacrifices made by healthcare workers throughout history. Ridgeview Asylum was a place of suffering and despair. Built in the late 1800s, it housed the mentally ill and those deemed unfit for society. The conditions were harsh and the treatments were often cruel and inhumane. Many patients died within its walls, their spirits trapped in a place of torment. The asylum was closed in the 1960s, but the stories of the lost souls who haunt its halls have persisted. One of the most chilling tales is that of a young woman named Emily. She was committed to Ridgeview after suffering a mental breakdown, and her family never visited her. Emily's spirit is said to roam the halls, searching for her family. Witnesses claim to hear her crying and calling out for her loved ones. Some have even reported seeing her ghostly figure standing at the window, staring out into the darkness. One night, a group of paranormal investigators decided to explore Ridgeview Asylum. They hoped to capture evidence of the hauntings and uncover the truth behind the legends. As they made their way through the dark, decaying building, they felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. They set up their equipment in one of the old patient rooms and began their investigation. As they asked questions, they heard faint whispers and the sound of footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Suddenly, one of the investigators felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She turned to see a young woman standing behind her, her face pale and filled with sorrow. The investigator tried to speak, but the figure vanished, leaving only a lingering chill. Determined to find more evidence, the investigators continued their search. They captured several EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena, that seemed to be the voices of former patients. One of the recordings included a voice saying, "Help me," in a desperate, pleading tone. As the night went on, the investigators experienced more unexplained phenomena. They saw shadowy figures moving through the halls and heard the sound of distant screams. One investigator even captured a photograph of a ghostly figure standing in the doorway of an old treatment room. The evidence they gathered convinced them that the spirits of Ridgeview Asylum were real. They believed that the patients who had suffered and died there were still trapped, unable to find peace. Even after the asylum was abandoned, the stories of the lost souls continued. The legend of Ridgeview Asylum serves as a haunting reminder of the pain and suffering endured by its patients. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the haunted halls of abandoned hospitals. These stories of restless spirits and lingering echoes of the past remind us of the profound impact that tragedy and suffering can have on a place. The ghosts of St. Mary's Hospital, Old Mercy General, and Ridgeview Asylum serve as chilling reminders of the lives lost and the pain endured within their walls. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more terrifying tales. Your support helps us continue to explore the darkest corners of the world and bring you spine-chilling content. Until next time, stay safe and beware of the echoes of the past. Remember, the ghosts of abandoned hospitals are more than just stories. They are echoes of real lives and real tragedies, forever haunting the places they once called home.